Hi, everyone. On behalf of STMA, welcome to the 5th virtual town hall meeting. We would like for this to be an interactive experience. So if you have a question or something to share, please use the chat feature to type a question. The chat is located along the bottom of the screen, and it will pop up in the participant panel. You can also raise your hand, and when you are called upon, you can speak to our panelists live. The raise hand is also located at the bottom right of the participant panel. Your moderator today is Jeff Salmond, CSFM from United Turf and Track. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, welcome everybody. Hope everybody had a good Memorial Day weekend. We'll get started today with the meeting is focused on professional rectangle sports fields in our industry. That said, we feel members in all segments of the industry can learn from each other, especially with the current state of affairs. The goal is to share information and learn in real time how everyone is adapting to this changing environment. We're going to learn today about sports field managers are planning what might lie ahead for their staff, facilities, and organizations. We all hope we come away with a good feedback from our peers and offer thoughts or topics for future discussions. We can all learn from the challenges that we are facing and the difficulty or success we are having in managing through them. Today, our panelists are Roesslein, CSFM. She is with Jeffco North Area Athletic Complex in Denver, Colorado. Next is Nick Fedewa. He's with the NFL Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville, Florida. And Dan Shemesh with the MLS New York Red Bulls in New York. So just a few ground rules we're going to go over. We try to do our best to stay apolitical. We try not to predict the future, but we will discuss various scenarios to be prepared for what may lie ahead. We recognize it is also not all right to not have all the answers and share our questions as much as our thoughts. Follow-up questions I'll take either through the chat or raise your hand as we get to that, and we can talk about how to clarify or dig deeper to get better answers. We highly encourage comments and questions from the audience. So we get started. We'll start off with give us a quick chat for the panelists. We'll give us a quick snapshot of your current labor and schedule of work, and how does it differ from your typical operations at this time of year? And we'll start off with Sun, and then we'll go with Nick, and then with Dan. Sun?
Well, thanks, Jeff. So I manage a 14-acre complex that has a football stadium and a soccer stadium side by side at the high school level. And there are two of us full-time here all year round. And then typically this time of year, we would be getting one more like summer seasonal just to kind of help us through the summer months. That's not going to happen this year. So just the two of us going to struggle on through the summertime, get to the fall. So the football stadium is 5,000 seat. The soccer stadium is 2,500. We're the home field for 6 different high schools. They play all of their home varsity matches at our stadiums. So it's a lot to keep up with for sure.
How does it differ this time of year and with the typical situation with COVID-19? How does operation change now versus in the past?
Sure. So all of our spring sports were canceled like everybody else, which did give us an opportunity to get a head start on some of our summer projects as far as aerating the what we call ornamental or auxiliary grass areas, getting that fertilizer out. Normally we would have been so busy that wouldn't start until like the second week of June, but I'm going to wrap that up this week. So we have been able to get a head start on some of our projects for the summer. But we've also, well, I think we're ahead, I feel like.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nick, how about yourself? What's your current labor and scheduled work? How does it differ from this time of year than normal?
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks everybody for watching this. So what we normally do is during the off season, we have 3 full-time guys, not including my boss, Mark Clay, and myself, who are in every single day. just doing all the odds and ends that we can't get done during the season, and then start to build up towards off-season workouts, the OTAs, the mini camps. And with all that being canceled, we're actually able to go in, do a little bit more maintenance than we normally have been able to, get another aerification in, get another verticut in. Thankfully for us, we've actually had some events lately with AEW Wrestling on the Field, Stadium Stampede this past week, where we were able to get all the guys in and, get painting again. What Mark and I started to do once this COVID hit was just mow. I would go mow the practice fields 3 times a week. He would mow the stadium field 3 times a week and just kind of keep it mowed. And that was basically it. And then when we were able to bring in our full-time guys, they would do 1 day a week. Then Mark and I would watch a drainage project. We had to replace our main drainage line on the stadium field this off season. So we kind of watched that while they came in, got some hours. And as things have started to open up, we're able to bring them in more. And right now what's different is normally we would have been going with OTA starting April 20th. And, we still have nothing. We still have no idea as to when we're actually going to get on the fields. But I will not lie, this break is nice for us to get the fields as good as we can possibly get them for when they actually do come back.
Nick, how long were you without your full-time staff?
Almost two full months. I think we brought them in a couple times, maybe after 6 weeks, but it was a good bit.
Very good. And Dan, how about yourself? What does your current labor and scheduled work look like, and how's it differ from typical operations at time of year?
So right now we have all of our full-time guys in. That's 5 of us. We oversee the stadium, which is right behind me, and our training fields, which we have 3 grass fields. It's about a half hour away. So we're actually located in North Jersey, not New York, but we use the name New York Red Bull. So we typically, since we have a bunch of games this time of year, we would have some seasonal help and some game day help. So the first thing that got eliminated was anybody that was part-time. So we also lost at the very beginning, one of our full-time guys had to, it was up to, management that he had to work from home just to limit the number of people that were actually on site. So after about a month of that, we were able to get our 5th full-time guy back, and now we've actually added one operations guy. He's an operations coordinator that has shown an interest for groundskeeping. So he's helping us 3 times a week. So he's mowing the field right now. So really being able to help out, we're just teaching. So he's able to kind of open up his horizon a little bit. The fact that we don't have games and stuff, so there's some less work for him. So he was able to fill in a need for us. So it worked out pretty well. And we actually just got our players back on the field yesterday. So it was the first day of training that was allowed in the state, and with the approvals and protocols we have to go through with.
Thanks, Dan. We'll go on to question number 2 for each one of our panelists. Do you have any pending projects or cultural practices, big or small, that have been impacted? And have you had to move any up due to no play, or postponed due to uncertainty or something in between, or budget or any budget concerns? And start with Nick.
So we've been very lucky that we haven't had much in the way of anything kind of slowing us down during the off season. I guess the only issue that we are kind of facing is the renovation of Field 3, the far end of our practice fields. We try to do one, so they're going on 17 years old. We've renovated Field 1 and Field 2 within the past 3 years. So we're trying to get field 3 done before training camp. Originally, it was before workout started, but with the city being shut down, that's been a bit of an issue, but it looks like we still might be able to get it done before training camp. In terms of, cultural practices, we're kind of right on the nose with that. We might get another airification in. We're going to laser top dress the stadium. Thankfully, some concerts had been not thankfully, but concerts had been postponed. So we're going to go ahead and keep that growing. Laser top dress that. The drainage project wasn't affected at all. We were able to get that done, being safe. And really, we're just waiting for football to come back. And as soon as we know what date that is, then we might be able to go in there and verticut some more, maybe airify a couple more times. But until we really know, everything's just kind of up in the air.
Dan, did you have any pending projects or culture practices that have been impacted, and did anything get moved up or canceled due to no play or uncertainty about what was going to happen?
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was getting a message that my audio was a little bad. Is that question for me or for son? Sorry.
That's for you, Dan.
Okay, sorry. So we actually, cultural practice-wise, we're in a pretty good spot. So normally this time of year in the spring, we don't have much opportunity to do anything because we usually jam with events and trainings and stuff. So we one of the first things we did was we were able to core airify all of our practice fields and the stadium field, and then deep tine aerate everything. And then a couple of weeks later, we followed up with a coral recycling dresser project that we've had the machine for a couple of years, but we never really had a chance to use it that much. So it was nice because it was one thing we were trying to be budget conscious and not, some things got cut and we weren't able to, buy the normal amount of sand that we normally, would, typically in a year. So nice thing about that recycler dresser is it brings the sand up from underneath and you can kind of reuse it on your field if it's good. So we thought that was pretty cool to be able to run that over every field, and was able, and pretty much got it to bounce back within like 10 days or so. So I think we're in a pretty good spot because normally we wouldn't have been able to do any of that stuff until the fall or at the end of the season. So we feel pretty good. And one of the main reasons we did all that extra was because we figured when we did come back for games or whatever, we were going to jam everything in, without any breaks. So we really needed to do as much as we could do now in order to, get it for the future, invest, everything we could now to be able to withstand any heavy traffic later on.
Nice, Dan. Thank you. Son, how about yourself? Did you guys have any projects that you were planning on doing but or got moved up?
Well, so we, there are actually 4 natural grass stadium fields within our system. We just have 2 at our location here. A couple years ago, we actually bought a phrase mower. So we're on a every other year phrase mow calendar planning, which this year would have been our year off. So we thought, well, we've got the time, maybe we can phrase mow again. But that got declined due to uncertain budgets. Our budget resets July 1, so we're kind of not really sure what's going to happen with that. But besides that, our regular plan is to, Dan, and it's funny you mentioned the recycle dresser. I love my recycle dresser. I use it at least twice a year, 2 directions. So my approach this year, I might try 3 directions. I'm going to try to get as aggressive as makes me uncomfortable because I have so much time. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens, and hope the extra time has given us a good transition into the fall.
Thank you, son. Just real quickly, I'm going to ask Nick and Dan from a professional standpoint, kind of a question that came up here. During this time, were your facilities completely closed to the athletes, and now that the athletes are coming back, or what kind of restrictions are you guys given as a staff to interact with the players? Dan, I'll ask you first.
Okay, so yeah, everything basically, we hosted a game a few nights before, the executive orders went into place, and everything got shut down. So one of the first things we did was like a full deep cleaning of the stadium and the training facility with a company that essentially, uses the foggers and all that stuff. So it apparently gives like a 90-day kind of control with residual, activity. So everything got sanitized, and then basically the buildings have been shut down, except for security, cleaning, and a few of the essential workers. And my guys and I have considered some of the essential staff, which is nice. So we don't have to really go in the buildings much. We just use our shop and maybe the printer once in a while. But we pretty much try to keep everything outside. So the slight difference is at the training facility, that building is still off limits. So the players came in yesterday, but everything, we have some tents outside. They do the temperature check. The only way they can go in the building is for a number 2 emergency. Everything else is outside. And maybe, who knows, they decide to do, their business. Not kidding. But no, also, if there was an injured player and needed treatment, there's some protocols there that they're allowed to go in the building. But there's we distributed all the gym equipment to all the players, so there's really no gym equipment inside. They have to change they come to training prepared with the clothes on, so they don't have to shower. Like, they just supposed to eat lunch in their car and drive home and shower. So they're given enough, uniform kits to get them through a few days. They're doing their own laundry and stuff. Everything is pretty tight. Now that is, has a lot to do with the league protocols and also with state protocols that we're kind of trying, we're complying with. They're pretty strict. So we just don't want any kind of, and even if they use the building or whatever, all the doors have to be propped open, and so they really don't have to touch anything, even to use the bathroom. So it's pretty restricted for inside access. So, we've only assigned one person that's allowed to go in the building. That's, there's like a leak or a fire alarm or something like that would have to be taken care of, or somebody might need a piece of gear, or the trainers might need something out of their room. So we just have one person that can go in and out to run for that kind of stuff. So the next phase, I think actually, so we're still in phase 1. I think up till phase 3 is when we can get people back in the building at some capacity. So I still think we're a little bit away from that yet.
Nick, how about you guys at the Jaguars?
So with us being a privately managed facility, one side is the Jaguars, one side is ASM Global. The Jaguars were basically booted out. Said, you can have some trainers, and the rehab players, they can be in at certain times. They have to be screened. They have to have their temperature checked, and then go straight out to the practice fields, do the rehab, come in and go. For us, those who were deemed essential, to get some stuff done in throughout the stadium, we would enter through our own side, be checked, be masked up. But we've been lucky in the fact that, this is our off season. They don't really need to be in. I know that we've just been approved, or the Jags have been approved to go up to 75 people. No more than 50% can actually be the football staff. I've asked whoever I can, do you have any idea when they're coming back? And the number one answer I get is we have no idea. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing how this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 actually works out. And hopefully, being down here in Florida, it's not as bad, but, we'll have to wait and see.
Very good. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Dan. Move on to question number 3 here. We are generally known as the go-to people in our organizations, the grinders, who get the job done well, done right, and done on time. Without type of grind and urgency, how have you had to adapt your own mental approach to work? Let's start with you, Dan.
You know, we still kind of kept the grinding mentality going a little bit. You know, we use it as an opportunity this time to get a lot of things done. You know, we're working less weekends and things like that, but you know, we also got involved with some other, you know, aspects of the business that we normally wouldn't be involved in because we were still on the ground, we were still working, coming to the office. So we were able to help out other departments and things like that, and that's part of our culture. Is to always do, you know, always help out our teammates and things like that. So, you know, we were, you know, some of the crew, they were delivering meals to the players, you know, weekly. We were getting gym equipment to everybody, you know, any kind of, you know, we were involved with the cleaning of the buildings, you know, stuff, you know, out of our normal job description that we were, you know, would typically, you know, be on the field or out the landscape. We were doing other things to help, you know, other departments out, even, you know, food shopping for some of the guys that were, you know, kind of scared to go out and, you know, just get some essentials. We were, you know, toilet paper, things like that were hard to get. You know, we were trying to, you know, use our, you know, our abilities to, you know, go find that stuff and deliver it to, you know, people's houses that, you know, some of the, we had some players that were a little nervous about even leaving. We had one guy who didn't leave the department for like 60 days. So helping out however we could. But, you know, one of the things our company also did was just in order to save money from a business standpoint was make sure everybody was taking all their PTO days, or basically if you accumulated a bunch of time, like something I have, because, you know, I've been with the company for like over 10 years now, so I've like maxed out on the days. So one of the things they did was like you have to take, you know, X number of days. So basically I've taken off 1 day a week every day, you know, up until the, you know, over the last month or so, and basically through July. So it's kind of been, you know, it's cool to take a step back here, and so we've, you know, and all the other crew members have done the same. So, you know, on any given day we have, you know, maybe one less person in or whatever, but you know, we've all been in good communication and been able to work out that schedule and things like that. So, you know, the actual, you know, you kind of miss, you know, part of the, you know, the grind of, you know, all the, you know, the action of the events and all that, but it's also, you know, it's also good to see this side of it, but it's also now kind of getting boring. You know, so we saw some players in the field yesterday. It was getting old for us to not have the grind anymore.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Son, how about yourself? Did you guys find a way to adapt to what you've had to accomplish each and every day, and how's that helped you?
Sure. Well, not having events every day. Normally during the spring, we would have boys or girls lacrosse on the football field, and then girls soccer on the soccer field, of course, every night of the week. So we'd be switching back and forth, making sure the fields are painted. We also manage the events, so we make sure that our ticket takers and sellers are scheduled and all that kind of stuff. So not having that stress this spring has been actually kind of a relief. I'm super lucky there. And I will also say that not having to worry about weather, trying to get, you know, the fields plowed and such to get games in has been really great. So the grind has kind of switched to looking forward and preparing, trying to guess and figure out what the fall is going to bring. Budget wise, like what can we do now to set ourselves up for success if we don't have as much money? Maybe I, you know, order a couple extra fertilizer apps or something like that. So it's not necessarily the physical grind, it's just the mental grind of trying to figure out what's next, how am I going to handle it, how am I going to set us up for the best fall possible with these conditions.
Son, do you see anytime soon, like maybe your August is going to just come in a blitz?
So we don't have any events until the beginning of August, where we start having graduation double headers. We're used to football double headers here, but not graduation double headers. The community is really pushed to have in-person graduations. So we have 7 graduations in 4 days. There's a week in between a couple of those. So, but we have nothing until that first weekend of August.
And all these are on your stadium football fields?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Right before they get to use them for the
Yeah.
season, huh?
Like 10 days before fall season
Oh
starts.
my goodness. Nick, how about you guys down at the Jaguars? What have you been able to? I know you typically have the monster trucks in January, February, and then you're able to redo the field. How's this year been different and your grind and your urgency?
So our grind was going good. We had the Monster Jam, and then we had the NFL Turf Managers meeting down here. Everything was good, and then it all just kind of went away. And I think that's where the grind of the honeydew list came in, where everybody was like, "Okay, we have this time off. We have to, get everything done around the house." And guys were doing projects. I actually became a teacher for my second grade son, who's a lot smarter than me. And I think that's what people are finding out. Like, going to work is a break. Like, we get to go and we get to, do what we love. And I've come to find out I really missed that grind. Coming home and being with my son is awesome. But oh my gosh, they're a handful. And it's just like, wow, like going to work is relaxing, going to mow. Even the stress of trying to figure out how we're going to do things now that the NFL schedule's out. Even that's been nice to kind of go, okay, I need to get back into this kind of groove here. That was very, very good. Now knowing that we're kind of working our way back, it gets your mental juices going as to, how are we going to get through this and actually start the season. Because the fields have to be ready. Fans or not, the fields have to be ready. So we need to stay cognizant of that they need to be ready to go when the players are.
Okay, just a quick question for all you then too. Typically during the baseball season, there's a lot of other events that happen on baseball stadiums during the summer. Do you guys all anticipate? And you get baseball get 10-day break, but in those 10-day breaks, you guys get other extra events. Do you guys foresee any extra events in between home games or weeks apart that you didn't normally would see? Dan?
So it's funny that you say baseball because actually our crosstown rival NYCFC plays at a baseball stadium, Yankee Stadium, and based on what happens with their schedule, which could likely will be condensed. I know there's a bunch of proposals going back and forth, and we hosted a couple of NYCFC's games in early March. Actually, we ended up hosting 2 of their matches this year and only 1 of our own, so kind of ironic. But the fact that when baseball comes back and soccer's back and all that, we could potentially hosting more of their games because they might not have an available field. So I know they're not a huge fan of that, but it is actually a decent way for us to make revenue. So that would be something that, would probably happen. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Just based on, that's just me being, putting some pieces together that I see happening with the schedule. And I think the rest of it's going to be just fitting in all the other games that we were supposed to, that we already committed for. So we actually picked up another professional team this year, the women's professional soccer NWSL Sky Blue is playing here this year. We're actually hosting another training facility, and they'll be back actually starting this week. So they had a full season they were looking at. So we were preparing that we'd be playing 3 games a week at some point. So I don't know if we're going to have necessarily many extra non-soccer events. We might. I guess if there's any way that we can make money that won't hurt our field or the schedule, we'll probably look at doing it.
Son, how about you?
Our fall season, especially on our football field, we host 2 to 4 football games every single week for 10 weeks straight. So there's not a lot of room in there for any extra events. week 6 of our fall season, we do host a like 30-ish marching band competition with about 30 bands or so. Kind of depends on who signs up that year. And if everything is an option, we will host that again. The only other rentals we have during season would be like a road race that would use our parking lot. So nothing actually on the field.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the extra revenue that your guys' venues have been missing. Nick, you get slammed with a bunch of concerts during the football season. Those are the kind of questions I was trying to ask. Do you anticipate any extra events outside of normal football games?
I know for us, our 2 concerts that we were going to have in July and August were actually pushed back till next year. I believe we already have dates on one, and the other one might be going away. I guess we're in kind of a weird situation where we're in the middle of Atlanta, Orlando, Tampa, Miami. So a lot of the big concerts have always kind of gone there, and we're getting back into the market now. And what I think is interesting is we've got an amphitheater that's attached to our stadium that's close to 5,000 seats. And that's where a lot of the musical acts are going instead of coming out onto the stadium field, which is very, very nice. And we've got the arena that ASM Global manages as well. So that's where we're lucky, where we don't have all those events coming out, that need to come onto the stadium field. Last week we hosted the AEW Stadium Stampede, and that's probably the one thing that we didn't see coming. But again, it was fun. It's different. So in terms of things kind of bunching up this year, besides the 2 extra games that we aren't going to London for, not really. We're in kind of a sweet spot here.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Question number 4 here. What are you doing now to reset and reframe expectations for your facilities, staff, and the people you answer to? And what is your main message to your stakeholders? Son?
Well, with just Christy and I here in the fall, that's we're pretty bare bones anyway. I think it's mostly my own high expectations that I need to reset. I'm realizing that, if I don't get to weedy all the tree rings before a Thursday football game, it's going to be okay. For the most part, I think it was maybe Andy Oman has a sign in his garage that says something along the lines of like, nobody knows what we do until we don't do it. So, kind of keeping that in mind, and like, it's okay if I don't, edge all the sidewalks or, things like that don't affect the play, but that might just make the place look nicer. So I think it'll take me some time to reset my own mind frame. But with just the 2 of us in the fall, we're so go, go, go that hopefully that'll help me relax a little bit more.
Nick?
I think, again, we've been lucky that it's during the off season. So we're already kind of in that mode of, okay, we're going to come back slowly. I think that's the only reset that we really have to do, is that when we come back, we're going to be hitting it hard, because it'll be either mini camp going into training camp or training camp. And from there on out, it's, every weekend we have something going on. So I think it's just kind of getting back in there and actually remembering, hey, this is what it's like to work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Because right now we're absolutely lost on that. And for Son to bring up that saying, we're actually having that sign made for our shop as well, because it's just so true.
How about the people that you answer to, Nick? How about what do you? I mean, you always had the expectations all the time. That hasn't changed.
No, because we have a really great relationship with the Jaguars and their staff. Their coach is great to us. His assistant is always getting a schedule, so we're keeping them updated on what we're doing. And in return, we're just kind of like, hey, can you kind of give us a heads up? And they're like, we really have no idea. And our stadium management staff is awesome. they come to us if there's any issues, kind of straightforward. And if we have any issues, we'll go to them. But they understand, like, if we aren't going to have those 2 concerts, we can grow the field back in. We can save that amount of money. It's better for us. We're going to have a better playing field. And I think that that's kind of where, as a group, we all can come together and make those decisions that save money, better for us, better for everybody, and everybody's happy.
Thanks, Nick. Dan, how about you? What's your communication to your staff and your stakeholders and your people you answer to?
So I like to, I've kept the expectations high, I guess, because we've had most of the resources available. I mean, we did lose a staff member for a period of time, but we didn't have anything on the field, and actually he was still working and helping out from home. But I think we've, for the most part, we've had everything. Ownership has given us everything that we've needed to be successful. So I've always kept the expectations high, because we will have high expectations from our players, from our coaching staff. So and I think if they were to come back and see the fields weren't in great condition after not being used for 2 months, I think I would have a lot of questions to answer. So I've done nothing but kind of hype up the fields and just say, we got to get back on these things. They're just sitting here waiting to get used. So, I was, but everything, it's still a lot of the unknown you're dealing with. So, that's the message that, I've communicated to people I report to. It's just like, okay, well, when we get back, how many events are we going to, we don't know that yet. So we're preparing for the worst, thinking we're going to play all the games in a shortened amount of time. So, typically, we have, we have some difficulties in the summer, in our stadium growing grass, which is with the enclosure of the roof, and we get really hot, and our bluegrass, ryegrass doesn't really like that too much. So when we I was a little bit nervous that we would just start, usually in the spring we do pretty good, and then if we were just trying to play all our games in July and August and condense it there, I'd be like, that was I was a little nervous about that, but we'll see what happens. So we're just trying to do everything we can now to keep the expectations are going to remain high. I think that's something that Red Bull expects from its its staff and from our players, that they're used to how our fields are.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. All right, we'll go on to last question here. One question. Each of you has mentored many excellent people in this industry. What is your message to young people, interns, and recent graduates who have been impacted during this time through no fault of their own? What can our industry and STMA members do to help these people right now? Nick?
Well, that's a great question, because, again, it's through no fault of their own. And I think, at least what we've talked about is maybe trying to get another person in, trying to get another intern down here, because that's what this business is all about. It's about getting people in, teaching them what we know. It doesn't mean it's right, but teaching them what we know, and then they take it and move on and do bigger and better things than we ever could ever think about doing. And I think that that's where we need to kind of go out of our way, at least on the professional side, and try to get some more people in. It's a little bit easier for us, budgetary restrictions aside, that we can get them in, teach them, push them, and then let them go. It's just going to make our professional area better. I think when it comes down to it, this is a people business. Yes, it's grass, yes, but it's the people who make it. Look at everybody in the STMA. Everybody gets together, has a great time, And then 2 months later, this whole thing hits, and a lot of people are out, and that's a crappy thing to have happen. But I think if we all come together, maybe try to get another person in here or there, we can really do some good.
Dan?
So it's unfortunate when you bring up interns, because we promised the student from Purdue, that he was going to work here this summer, and obviously, we never could foresee this situation happening. So we had to, as soon as we got, early March came around, and we would have had him working by now, but we started saying, hey, probably going to have to look for some other options. So just keep your options open, because when we had when all the hiring was basically stopped, and then part-time workers weren't allowed to work anymore. So that, unfortunately, we lost somebody who was going to get some college credit and get some extra money this summer with us, and it was a bummer, because we set up time with him at the STMA conference, had lunch, had him meet everybody on the crew and kind of get familiar, and it was kind of things to see that. But so I would say, if you have an opportunity, you might have missed out on this summer if you're looking for an internship, but it doesn't mean, even if you graduate, that you can't have another internship after you graduate. So I would look at it as another opportunity. So, maybe you are going to graduate, or you just did in the spring, or you still have another semester left. I would still look for another opportunity, because, most clubs will still probably open you with, bring you in with open arms to find, interns that are willing to come in, because it is actually, we noticed somewhat of a decline in people that have been willing to apply or want to do something with us, or in general. So I think that was something that I did after I graduated. Was I took an internship. I took a part-time job, out of college, and it turned out all right. So, other opportunities you can look for extra online learning. I would participate in anything the STMA is throwing out, any of your local chapters. Myself, I've taken up working on my Spanish. Duolingo is a free app you can download. I've done 65 days in a row, 25 minutes a day of Spanish. So my wife's Venezuelan, so she's very happy with my progress. But it definitely still needs a lot of improvement. But things like that, something, being bilingual in our industry is, obviously huge plus. So that's one thing you can do in your spare time, because you're not really doing many of the other activities that you're used to doing, being with all the businesses locked down or whatever. So you do have a little bit more free time. So I also say taking care of your own body, mental health, exercising and things like that you can do, which is be a benefit to your future. Keeping your immune system ready for the next pandemic. So those are things that I would suggest. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Dan. Son, how about yourself with the interns, and what can you do to help them out?
Sure. Well, we don't have interns specifically, so I don't necessarily have a lot of experience with that. What I would say is, like, adversity makes us stronger, right? Like, nobody who's successful has had a super easy road that I know anyway. So I would say, like, in these times where maybe an internship has fallen through, like Nick said earlier, this is a people business. Like, reach out to people who are around you, maybe see if you could just have a tour of the facility. Take some of the downtime to expand your network, through the local chapters. I would say, feel free to reach out to anybody in your area. And as a young person, I'm still shy, but as a young person, I was definitely very shy. But if you can get over that and reach out to some people around you, and go see a facility that maybe you wouldn't have the chance to see if you were working, 50, 60 hours a week somewhere else. The more you can expand your network and your experiences, the better. So if you've got time on your hands, it's a good time for that.
All right. I think I got one question that came up, and I'll ask all three of you. Kind of touched on it a little bit. Start with you, son. You said your fiscal year started starts in July. For all three of you, have you seen any significant budget restrictions since the shutdown started, or have there been pretty much status quo? Do you anticipate anything happening with your budgets starting in July over the course of the next few months? Son?
We were fairly status quo until about 3 weeks ago. Like I said, we were going to maybe do a phrase mo this year, even though we did it last year. But with the uncertainty upcoming and some kind of scary numbers coming from the state of Colorado for public education, our boss was like, nah, we better wait. We have a very minimal materials budget anyway, and that is supplemented by our rentals, which we had to cancel a whole lot of them this spring. So not having that money coming in has really made us hit the brakes and hold off on a lot of that stuff. So,
with no anticipation to be able to do them in the future, or you have to put in for them again?
Well, we own the equipment, so it's mostly just the materials and the time. So I think we'll be able to do it again. It's just a matter of seeing what our budget looks like for next year, where we can plan a little bit better rather than trying to squeeze in at the end of our budget year.
Okay. Nick, how about you guys? You have anything?
Knock on wood, we have not had many issues here. Being funded by the city as a private management company, our budget is pretty much set at the beginning of our fiscal year in October. And so, have things gone a little bit longer to get approved? Yes. Does that really matter right now with not really much going on? No. I know the city has a couple big things on their plate in regards to our capital budget and maybe some things that we might be able to get done. But in the big scheme of things, not much has changed. We're very, very lucky.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Dan, how about you guys?
So yeah, that was one of the first impacts that we experienced. It was a lot of going through many scenarios. What if we played all the games? What if we played half the games? What if we played with no fans? Obviously hurt the gate revenue. So we had to basically go through 3 or 4 types of scenarios and say, example A, we play all the games but with no fans. Example B, we play half the games, et cetera. So we had to see where we could cut. Obviously, the first thing was our seasonal help, any part-time staff. So that got pretty much cut right from the beginning. They looked at every line item and basically questioned, hey, what could you do with this? Certain things that, I cut were like, we usually plant flowers and change out, some dead shrubs and things like that. So, we got rid of some of that. We were painting less, so we cut the paint budget. Top dressing, I switched from a dry sand to a damp sand. It was just, it was significantly cheaper. And that's one of my bigger line items, is our sand cost. We're always going to be careful with, our fungicide use, but we ended up bringing on most of our products last year at the early order time. So we actually received most of our inventory already. So it was our, any additional indirect expenses that we could cut going forward. We had to scrutinize every line item. So I did get a significant reduction. Unfortunately, one of the ones that hit big were, personal travel and entertainment expenses. So, we used to be able to, have a lunch or get donuts or whatever. But yeah, those are some of the first things we had to cut. No crew lunches or Krispy Kreme donuts. So, that was tough to break the news to the guys. But we're making it through. Everybody's bringing their own lunch.
All right. Well, we got just a few minutes left, and I'm going to ask one final question to the panel. Since this is 2020, and if you could see 2020, and how would you have approached if you would have known and had 2020 vision that that this pandemic, what would you have done differently with your staff, with your facilities, with your fields, had you have known if this was going to be a couple months off? How would you have approached things differently? Dan, I'll start with you.
Tough question. I don't know. I'm at the point where I'm happy with, the results. So I don't really think we would have changed anything. I mean, I would have, loved to figure out a way to, get our seasonal staff and part-time staff taken care of. Obviously, I probably would have, I would have told them to, start, using, join the Uber Eats or whatever to supplement their income. But I don't know where I would have, that was our main concern was, taking care of all of our employees. And that was something that we did as, with the full-time guys and all the, Red Bull staff. Everybody was guaranteed to keep their jobs, but it really hurt our part-time people. So because they were only really working because of the event. So without the event, we weren't able to keep them on. So and the plan is still that we will have those events, so we can actually, foreseeably have our staff, our seasonal staff, come back and work all those games. But now, I mean, there's no, obviously more restrictions on, if everybody has to be tested, that's in the stadium, things like that, and everything, those are real costs. So are we going to be able to, if we're playing behind closed doors, are we going to be able to normally, where we would normally have 10 people work, I don't know if we're not going to be able to have that anymore. So we're going to be down to just our full-time people. So field-wise, I would have, pretty much, of course I have a wish list. I would have loved knowing that we were shut, we're shut down for 2 months. I don't know there's a lot we could have done because we still had games at the end of February and early March. So, I would have loved to install the field heating system, but we'll never get that approved in our budget because it's multiple millions of dollars. So, if I had like an unlimited, funds, I would have done, some major projects like that. But not having that available, I could actually say that I would have not done anything different. Just, make sure we're taking care of our employees, the best we can.
Son, how about you?
Well, I probably would have bought stock in Purell, having seen this coming. Outside of that, knowing early on that we can be super aggressive with our approach. We started our first POA spray a little bit earlier because we didn't have games. We're trying to get a little bit more aggressive with that. We're starting we started our PGR program a little bit sooner. I was able to aerate all the auxiliary areas twice as much as normal. So ahead of this, I'm not sure I would have changed anything, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to get more aggressive and fine tune things a little bit more.
Nick?
I'll agree with Son. I would have been a lot more aggressive, knowing that we were going to be off and we weren't going to be starting our off-season workouts and OTAs on time. And with my staff, we were lucky being through the city of Jacksonville and privately managed that because the city never shut down. My full-time staff kept getting paid, and we did as well. Extremely blessed. And, so in that regard, there's nothing that we could have done, but field-wise, we could have definitely been a little bit more aggressive. Maybe try to get a little bit more of each side layer out. Years and years of buildup. Maybe gone a little bit wider on the tines, a little bit heavier on the top dressing. But then again, that's 2020, and it is what it is now.
It is.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any quick questions? We're getting close upon the hour. Well, I want to thank STMA headquarters and the group for inviting me to be a moderator today. I want to thank to our panelists, Son, Nick, and Dan, for your insight today. Thank you to our technology committee members, President Jimmy Simpson, the board, and as well Kristen and Kim Heck from STMA. Be on the lookout for more details on future town halls on our association website at stma.org, at field experts on social media, and your email inbox. So again, thank you all for participating. Be well and stay safe and have a good rest of your day. Thanks for coming on, guys, today.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.